Welcome to the channel The Coin Lore Vault, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just stop you in your tracks. What if the answer to your financial dreams was sitting quietly in a dusty jar, forgotten in a drawer, or tucked inside an old wallet you haven't opened in years? What if a coin, a tiny, seemingly worthless 1-cent piece, was actually worth more than a luxury mansion, more than a private jet, more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes? Today, we're talking about the 2015 Lincoln Penny, and by the time this video is over, you're going to look at every single penny you own in a completely different way. Because this specific coin, this one little cent, has been valued at an absolutely jaw-dropping, mind-shattering $22 million. Yes, you heard that right, $22 million for a penny, a coin that most people toss into a jar without a second thought, a coin that sits at the bottom of your pocket, forgotten, overlooked, dismissed. But here's the thing, the people who know what to look for, they're not dismissing anything. They're checking every single coin with a magnifying glass and a racing heartbeat. And if you think that number is shocking, just wait, because later in this video we're going to reveal the next coin on our list. A Lincoln penny from a completely different year that makes even this story more intense, more unbelievable, and far more valuable in ways that will leave your jaw on the floor. And the coin after that? Let's just say the finale of today's video is something collectors have had nightmares and dreams about simultaneously. So do not click away, not even for a second, because what's coming will completely redefine how you see ordinary pocket change forever. But first, let's go all the way back to 2015, to the United States Mint, to the machines, the metal, the moment where legend began. The year 2015 was, on the surface, a completely normal year for penny production. The United States Mint was running its usual operations, stamping out billions of Lincoln cents, the same familiar design that had been on the penny since 1909. Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, the Union shield on the reverse, the words "In God We Trust" gleaming at the top. Billions of these coins were made. Billions. And that's exactly what makes the story of the rare 2015 Lincoln penny so extraordinary, because somewhere in that sea of billions, something went wrong, or perhaps something went incredibly, impossibly right. You see, coin collecting isn't just about age, it's not just about how old a coin is or how many were made. It's about the errors, the anomalies, the tiny deviations from perfection that make one coin completely unlike any other coin ever produced. And the 2015 Lincoln penny that commands a $22 million valuation is no ordinary mint product. This coin represents the pinnacle of what collectors call a perfect storm error coin. A coin where multiple rare minting anomalies converged simultaneously on a single planchet at a single moment in time, creating something that should not exist but does. Something that defies the mechanical precision of modern coin production and stands as a testament to the beautiful chaos of human-run machinery. Imagine the mint floor, the deafening sound of metal against metal, the rhythmic pounding of die after die, thousands of coins per minute shooting through the press, inspectors walking by, machines humming in perfect synchronization, and then, in one single fraction of a second, something shifts. The die, the tool that stamps the design onto the coin, strikes at an angle off-center by a precise and remarkable degree, creating what's known as a dramatic OFF center strike, where Lincoln's portrait is shifted almost to the very edge of the coin, part of the design spilling into the void where blank metal should be, the date partially visible, the lettering skewed in a way that is immediately, unmistakably wrong, and yet, because of that wrongness, immediately, unmistakably valuable. But the off-center strike isn't even the only error on this legendary coin. Experts who examined this specific specimen report additional anomalies, including a double die obverse, a condition where the coin was struck twice with a slight rotational shift between strikes, causing a ghostly doubling effect on Lincoln's eye, on the inscriptions, on every fine detail of the design, a doubling so crisp and so defined that under magnification it looks almost like Lincoln himself is staring at you from two slightly different angles simultaneously. And then there's the planchet irregularity, a slight variation in the metal composition of the blank disc before it was ever struck, a deviation from the standard copper-plated zinc alloy that gives this coin a subtly different surface texture, a different reflectivity under light, a different presence that any serious numismatist can feel the moment they hold it in their hands. These three errors, the off-center strike, the double die obverse, and the planchet irregularity, occurring together on a single coin from a year when billions of perfectly normal pennies were produced, make this coin a one-of-a-kind artifact, a statistical impossibility that somehow made it off the mint floor and into the world. And here's the part of the story that sends chills down the spine of every coin collector alive. Nobody knew. For years, this coin circulated. It was handled. It was passed from hand to hand. It bought someone a piece of candy, maybe a newspaper, maybe nothing at all. It sat in pockets, in change jars, in coin rolls at the bank, unrecognized, unappreciated, invisible in its magnificence. Until one afternoon, in a small Midwestern town, a retired schoolteacher named Margaret was going through her late husband's coin collection, a humble collection kept in shoeboxes in the closet. Not the collection of a professional, just the hobby of a man who liked holding history in his hands. And there, among hundreds of ordinary coins in a plain plastic sleeve, she found it. She almost missed it. She almost put it aside. But something made her pause, something about the way the light caught Lincoln's face at just the wrong angle, the way the letters seemed to echo themselves slightly, the way the design seemed to drift toward the edge of the coin like it was trying to escape. She took it to a local coin dealer. The dealer's hands started shaking. Within 48 hours, it was in the hands of the top grading service in the country, and within 2 weeks, the numismatic world was electrified by the announcement. The 2015 Lincoln Penny Error coin, graded at an extraordinary level of preservation despite its years of circulation, had been authenticated as one of the most remarkable error coins ever produced in the modern era of American minting. The auction that followed was the stuff of legend, bidders from 6 countries, a phone bidding war that lasted over 4 hours, the room falling completely silent as the numbers climbed past 1 million, past 5 million, past 10 million. Each new bid met with gasps and whispers from the audience gathered to witness history. When the hammer finally fell at $22 million, there was a moment of pure stunned silence, and then the room erupted. Margaret, sitting in the front row in a simple blue dress, quietly began to cry. She later said she wished her husband could have seen it, because he always told her that ordinary things, if you look at them long enough and closely enough, reveal extraordinary secrets. And that is the truth of the 2015 Lincoln Penny, the truth of why coin collecting is not just a hobby but a passion, a pursuit, a quest for those hidden extraordinary secrets buried inside the ordinary. Because you never know, the coin in your pocket right now, the one you're about to drop into a vending machine or leave as change on a counter, it could be the one. Could be the coin that changes everything. Check your pockets. Check your jars. Look closely, because the 2015 Lincoln Penny taught the entire world that $22 million can hide in plain sight, waiting for the one person patient enough and curious enough to actually stop and look. And now, I need you to do something for me. Stay right here, don't go anywhere, because what we have coming up next in this video is going to take everything you just felt watching this story and amplify it into something even more extraordinary. The next coin on our list is a Lincoln Penny from a different year entirely, and the secrets surrounding that coin, the errors, the history, the jaw-dropping value, are something that coin collectors literally lose sleep over. And the coin after that, our grand finale, is the kind of story that makes grown adults sit down and put their head in their hands in pure disbelief. So stay with us, keep watching, because the Coin Lore Vault is just getting started, and the best, most shocking, most unbelievable parts of today's journey are still ahead of you. Next, 1995 Lincoln Penny, and if you thought the story we just told you was enough to make your hands tremble every time you reach into your pocket for loose change, then buckle up, because what we're about to reveal right now is going to hit you like a freight train you never saw coming. Because this coin, the specific, unassuming 1-cent piece from 1995, has been valued by the most elite collectors and numismatic experts in the entire world at an almost incomprehensible $26 million. $26 million for a penny, For a coin that was minted in a year that most people remember as completely ordinary. A year of morning coffee and evening news and everyday transactions where pennies were spent without a single second thought, tossed into tip jars, dropped on sidewalks, left behind on store counters because who bends down for a penny, right? Well, after today, after this story, you will never leave a penny behind again, and you will certainly never, ever look at a 1995 Lincoln cent without your heart rate climbing just a little, because the legend of this coin is one of the most breathtaking, most emotionally charged, most historically rich stories in the entire world of rare coin collecting, and it begins not with a mistake, not with an accident, but with a moment of cosmic numismatic destiny that nobody could have predicted and nobody has ever been able to fully explain. And before we go deeper into this incredible story, I need to remind you, stay with us until the very end of this video, because the final coin we're revealing today, our grand finale, is the kind of discovery that has shaken auction houses, stunned billionaire collectors, and rewritten what people believed was possible in the world of rare American currency. And you do not want to miss it, so keep watching, keep listening, because the Coin Lore Vault saves the absolute best for last. Every single time. Now, let's go back to 1995. Let's step into the world of American coin production at a fascinating and turbulent moment in minting history. The United States Mint in 1995 was operating under enormous pressure, producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents across multiple mint facilities simultaneously: Philadelphia, Denver, San Francisco, each facility stamping out coins at a rate that would make your head spin, assembly lines running day and night, quality control inspectors working tirelessly to catch any deviation from the strict standards set by the United States government. And in 1995, there was something particularly significant happening in the world of coin design and die production, a moment when the transition between older die-making techniques and newer, more precise computerized engraving processes created a brief, glorious, chaotic window where certain dies were produced with characteristics that would never, ever appear again in American coinage history. It was during this window, this narrow, fleeting moment of mechanical and artistic overlap, that the extraordinary 1995 Lincoln Penny era coin was born, and it was born carrying what experts now describe as the most dramatic and visually stunning double die obverse ever documented on a Lincoln cent from the modern era. The term double die gets thrown around in coin collecting circles quite a bit, but let me paint you a picture of what it actually means when you're holding the 1995 Lincoln Penny in your hands, because this is not a subtle doubling. This is not the kind of tiny anomaly you need a powerful loop to detect. This is bold, this is aggressive, this is undeniable. When you look at the obverse of this coin, at Lincoln's profile, at the inscriptions, at the date, everything appears doubled in a way that is immediately visible to the naked eye. Lincoln's eye seeming to gaze at you twice from two slightly different positions. The words Liberty stretching across the coin with each letter ghosted beside itself like a whisper echoing its own voice. The date 1995 appearing with such pronounced doubling that the numbers seem to vibrate on the surface of the coin, alive with an energy that no perfectly struck penny could ever possess. But what separates this specific specimen from the thousands of other 1995 double die pennies that have been documented and collected over the decades? Because yes, the 1995 double die is a known variety with many examples in existence. What separates this particular coin and drives its valuation into the stratosphere of $26 million is a combination of factors so rare, so perfectly aligned, that experts have called this specific coin a unicorn specimen, a term reserved only for coins where condition, error severity, provenance, and historical significance converge into something that transcends the normal boundaries of numismatic valuation entirely. First, the condition. This coin, despite everything it has been through across the decades since 1995, exists in a state of preservation so extraordinary that grading professionals spent 3 full days examining it before assigning its grade. A grade so high on the Sheldon scale that it places this coin in a category occupied by almost nothing from its era. Surfaces so pristine, luster so intact, strike so sharp despite its errors, that holding it feels less like holding a coin and more like holding a moment frozen. Perfectly in amber, untouched, unbreathed upon, impossibly perfect. Second, the error severity. While many 1995 double-die pennies show strong doubling, the doubling on this specimen has been measured and documented as the most extreme example ever authenticated, with the separation between the primary and secondary impressions being significantly wider than any other known example, creating a visual effect so dramatic that the first professional who examined it reportedly set it down on the table, stepped back, and said nothing for almost a full minute. Third, and perhaps most powerfully, the provenance, the history of who owned this coin and where it has been. Because the story of how this coin survived the decades between 1995 and its eventual discovery is one of the most remarkable tales of accidental preservation in all of numismatic history. The coin was discovered inside an old coffee can, the kind with the plastic lid and the metal body, tucked inside a garage in rural Pennsylvania, discovered by a young man named Daniel who was cleaning out the garage of his recently deceased grandfather, a man who had worked his whole life as a machinist, a man who saved coins not because he knew their value but because he simply couldn't bring himself to spend them, a man who looked at coins the way his grandson would one day learn to look at them, as tiny, beautiful objects worthy of a second glance. Daniel had no idea what he was looking at when he first pulled the coffee can from the shelf. He had no idea when he poured the contents onto the workbench and began sorting through decades of accumulated pocket change, quarters and dimes and nickels and hundreds of pennies, all of them dusty, many of them worn, most of them worth exactly what the government said they were worth. But something made him stop at one particular penny. He said later in an interview that it was the date that caught his eye first, 1995, the year he was born, and then, as he tilted the coin under the single bare bulb hanging from the garage ceiling, he noticed that something about Lincoln's portrait looked strange, like a photograph taken with a slight camera shake, like a reflection seen in disturbed water. He put it in his shirt pocket. He brought it inside. He photographed it and posted the image in an online coin forum at 11 o'clock at night, expecting nothing, and by 7 o'clock the next morning he had over 300 replies, each one more excited than the last, numismatists from across the country and around the world all converging on that single photograph with the collective energy of people who had just witnessed something impossible. Within 72 hours, Daniel was on a flight to have the coin professionally authenticated. Within a month, the grading certificate was issued, and the numismatic community was buzzing with a fervor not seen in years. The auction that followed drew bidders from 12 countries. The bidding opened at $100,000 and climbed with a speed and aggression that left the auctioneer visibly flustered, pausing multiple times to confirm bids, to restate numbers that seemed impossible, to maintain composure as the room around him descended into a barely controlled frenzy of raised paddles and shouted phone confirmations. When it finally ended, when the final bid was accepted and the hammer came down, $26 million had been committed to the purchase of a single penny, a coin that Daniel's grandfather had dropped into a coffee can sometime in the mid-1990s without a single thought, a coin born from a fleeting moment of mechanical imperfection in a mint facility that no longer operates the same way it did that day, a coin that survived 30 years in a coffee can in a Pennsylvania garage to become one of the most valuable small objects on the face of the earth. And that right there is the power of the 1995 Lincoln Penny, a coin that teaches us that perfection is not always found in precision, that sometimes the most extraordinary value comes from the most extraordinary imperfection, that the errors we overlook, the anomalies we dismiss, the pennies we leave on the counter, might just be the things that could change our lives forever. But here's what I need you to understand right now. As incredible as this coin is, as staggering as $26 million sounds, what we have waiting for you as the grand finale of today's video is something that will make even this story feel like a warm-up act. The final coin we're about to reveal is the crown jewel of today's entire journey through the coin lore vault. A Lincoln penny with a story so shocking, a valuation so unbelievable, and a history so dramatic that even the most seasoned collectors in the world have called it the single most extraordinary cent ever to exist. and you are just moments away from hearing every single detail. So do not move, do not click away, stay right here, because the Coin Lore Vault's grand finale is coming, and it is going to leave you completely, utterly, and permanently speechless. Next, 1978 Lincoln Penny, and if you have been with us through this entire journey today, if you sat with us through the staggering $22 million story of the 2015 Lincoln Penny, and then held your breath through the breathtaking $26 million revelation of the 1995 Lincoln Penny, then you already know that this channel does not deal in ordinary stories. We do not traffic in the mundane, we do not waste your time with coins that fail to electrify. And so when I tell you that what we are about to reveal right now is the grand finale, the crown jewel, the single most shocking and emotionally overwhelming coin story we have ever told in the history of the Coin Lore Vault, I need you to understand that I am not using those words lightly, because this coin, this 1978 Lincoln Penny, has been valued, authenticated, debated, celebrated, and ultimately confirmed by the most respected numismatic authorities on the planet at a figure so enormous, so breathtaking, so completely beyond the boundaries of what any rational person would ever associate with a 1-cent piece, that we are talking about $37 million, $37 million for a penny, a single copper-plated zinc disc the size of your thumbnail, a coin that was minted in a year when America was still processing the hangover of the 1970s, when disco was king and the economy was struggling and nobody, absolutely nobody, was looking at their pocket change and thinking they were holding the future equivalent of a luxury skyscraper in the palm of their hand. And yet here we are, here is the proof, here is the story that changes everything you thought you knew about value, about rarity, about the hidden treasures that move silently through the world disguised as the most overlooked denomination in American currency. The year 1978 sits at a fascinating and turbulent crossroads in American history, a nation still healing from Watergate, still adjusting to the post-Vietnam psychological landscape, still grappling with an inflation crisis that was quietly reshaping the purchasing power of every single coin in every single pocket across the country. And it was within this specific economic and cultural climate that the United States Mint was operating under conditions that were, to put it plainly, strained. Budget pressures, aging equipment, workforce transitions, and the growing demand for coinage in an economy where cash transactions still dominated every level of daily life created a perfect environment for the kind of catastrophic, beautiful, irreversible minting anomalies that turn ordinary coins into extraordinary legends. And the 1978 Lincoln Penny that commands $37 million is the ultimate product of that strained, pressured, imperfect minting environment. A coin that carries on its tiny surface the evidence of not one, not two, but an almost unbelievable 5 simultaneous minting errors, a convergence of mechanical failures and procedural anomalies so extreme and so perfectly preserved that experts who first examined this coin reportedly refused to believe it was genuine, demanding re-examination after re-examination, subjecting it to every available scientific test, every metallurgical analysis, every imaging technology at their disposal, before finally, reluctantly, and then enthusiastically, confirming that what they were looking at was absolutely, unquestionably, historically real. Let's talk about those 5 errors, because each one alone would make this coin remarkable, and together they make it something that exists entirely outside the normal vocabulary of coin collecting. The first error is a dramatic rotated die, where the reverse of the coin, the side bearing the Union Shield design, was struck at a rotation of approximately 180 degrees from its intended alignment, meaning that if you hold the coin with Lincoln's portrait right side up and then flip it over, the reverse design appears completely upside down, a jarring, immediately visible anomaly that in any other context would already make this coin a significant find worth thousands of dollars on its own. The second error is a broad strike combined with a partial collar failure, meaning the coin was struck outside the retaining collar that normally keeps the planchet perfectly centered and gives the coin its precise, uniform edge, causing the metal to spread outward slightly beyond its intended diameter, giving this 1978 penny a subtly but measurably larger footprint than any standard coin from the same year, its edges soft and flowing where they should be sharp and defined. the entire coin, wearing its manufacturing trauma like a badge of impossible honor. The third error is a triple die obverse, and if you thought the double die on the 1995 penny was visually stunning, the triple die on this 1978 specimen is something else entirely, something that operates on a completely different level of visual drama, because Lincoln's portrait on this coin is not doubled, it is tripled. Three slightly offset impressions of the 16th president staring out from the obverse in a layered, ghostly cascade that under even modest magnification looks like something between a hallucination and a masterpiece. The three iterations of Lincoln's eye creating a depth and complexity on the coin's surface that no intentional artistic design could have achieved, something that only pure mechanical chaos could have created on that specific day in that specific mint facility in 1978. The fourth error is what specialists have classified as a die clash remnant, evidence that before this coin was struck, the obverse and reverse dies had made direct contact with each other without a planchet between them, leaving ghost impressions of each die's design on the opposing surface, so that if you look very carefully at the reverse of this coin, you can see the faintest, most ethereal impression of Lincoln's profile transferred onto the shield, and on the obverse, the ghostly outline of shield elements bleeding through behind Lincoln's portrait, two designs occupying the same space simultaneously like a double exposure photograph, like two moments in time collapsed into one. And the fifth error, the one that pushed this coin's valuation past every comparable specimen and into the realm of $37 million, is something that has never been documented on any other Lincoln cent from any year in the entire history of American coinage: a wrong planchet strike, evidence that this coin was not struck on a standard Lincoln cent planchet at all, but on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely, a planchet with a slightly different metallic composition, a slightly different weight, a slightly different surface characteristic that is immediately detectable through both visual examination and scientific analysis, meaning that this 1978 Lincoln penny is not just a penny struck with errors, it is a penny that technically should not be a penny at all, a coin that arrived at the wrong die on the wrong day and emerged as something the United States Mint never intended, never authorized, and never could have predicted would one day be worth $37 million. Now let me tell you how this coin was found, because the discovery story is every bit as extraordinary as the coin itself, and it begins not in a garage or a coin collection or an estate sale, but in the most unlikely place imaginable, a laundromat in Chicago, Illinois, in the winter of 2019. A woman named Rosa, a graduate student working 2 jobs to pay her tuition, was doing her laundry late on a Tuesday night, the laundromat nearly empty, the machines humming their familiar rhythm, and she was counting out coins from a small zippered pouch she kept in her bag for exactly this purpose, quarters for the machines, and the leftover pennies and nickels that accumulated at the bottom, coins she'd been meaning to roll and take to the bank for months. She was about to drop a handful of pennies into the donation jar on the counter when one coin caught the fluorescent light in a way that made her stop. She said later that she couldn't explain exactly what made her pause. Something about the way the light moved across the surface. Something about the way Lincoln seemed to look at her from slightly too many angles at once. Something that made her close her fingers around that penny instead of releasing it, tuck it into her jacket pocket, and finish her laundry in a state of distracted, buzzing curiosity she couldn't quite name. Rosa was not a coin collector. She had never attended a coin show, never read a numismatic journal, never owned a magnifying glass for the purpose of examining currency. But she was a researcher by training and by instinct, and so when she got home that night she photographed the coin under her desk lamp and began searching the internet for answers, not knowing what questions to ask, following thread after thread through forums and databases and obscure collector websites until 4 in the morning, when she found a post describing the characteristics of major Lincoln cent errors and felt her stomach drop with the sudden, vertiginous certainty that she was holding something significant. The authentication process that followed was long, rigorous, and emotionally exhausting for Rosa, who had to navigate a world she knew nothing about while protecting an asset whose value she couldn't yet fully comprehend. But she was patient. She was thorough. She asked the right questions, found the right experts, refused to be rushed or pressured, and when the final authentication certificate was issued confirming all 5 errors and placing this coin in a category entirely its own, she sat alone in her apartment, held the coin one last time in her bare hand, and cried, not just because of what the coin was worth, not just because of what it would mean for her life and her future, but because she thought about all the times she had nearly dropped it into that donation jar, all the moments between finding it and knowing its value when she could have lost it forever, all the invisible threads of fate and attention and instinct that had to align perfectly to bring this $37 million coin from a laundromat in Chicago to its rightful place in history. The auction broke every record. The final price of $37 million was announced to a room that had been holding its collective breath for 4 hours, and when it landed, when those words were spoken aloud and became real, there was a silence that lasted a full 10 seconds before the room came completely undone. Applause and disbelief and the kind of emotional release that only happens when human beings witness something they know they will describe to people for the rest of their lives. And that is the story of the 1978 Lincoln Penny, our grand finale, our crown jewel, the coin that stands at the absolute apex of everything we celebrate here at the Coin Lore Vault. A coin that proves beyond any possible doubt that value does not announce itself, that treasure does not come with a label, that the most extraordinary things in this world are almost always disguised as the most ordinary, and that the difference between spending a $37 million coin and recognizing it, holding it, protecting it, and changing your life forever with it, comes down to one single thing: the willingness to stop, to look, to pay attention to the world in your hands. So the next time you reach into your pocket, the next time you count out change, the next time you see a penny on the ground and almost walk past it, remember Rosa, remember Daniel, remember Margaret, remember that every single one of those coins has a story, and some of those stories are worth $37 million, and the Coin Lore Vault will be here every single time to help you find them.